Hey everyone, this is Jay Osber and I'm the VP of Cloud Computing here at PistolStar. Thanks for joining me here on our YouTube channel, and on this video I'd like to talk to you about some best practices when it comes to integrating security and authentication elements into your secure web portal design. Let's begin by talking about design elements and how what you present to your end user can have a huge effect on their willingness to interact, trust, and ultimately rely on your portal as a legitimate online tool and resource. As organizations vie for users' attention, engagement, and retention, their focus ultimately centers on user loyalty. Site loyalty, like brand loyalty, is really the end goal of just about every web administrator. You'll notice here on the screen that I'm showing you a number of key elements that go into attracting, engaging, and ultimately creating that user loyalty. Your end user experience should focus on building a strong foundation around the key elements that are very tangible to an end user. It's one thing to have a lot of quote-unquote gee whiz look and feel elements on your site, but it's just as important to make sure that your site provides the staples a user is looking for. Things like, is the site easy to navigate? Is it helpful? Does it have what they're looking for? Is the design consistent? And finally, is their data secure? Only once you've established this can you then move to the key elements of trust that open the gateway to true user loyalty. Do your users feel that they're safe and that they belong? Do they recognize you? And are they given visual reassurances that tell them that they're in a trusted environment? There was an interesting article published on the website theguardian.com that looked at user behavior when it came to interacting with sites that they used regularly and had loyalty to. The article itself presents 20 different design elements that range from good copy, crisp photography, and having a strong social presence, along with a host of others that many of us might argue is pretty much the basis for an online marketing 101 course. The really interesting thing this article offered, though, was that the backbone of all these efforts rely on user trust in their ability to feel safe and protected while they're transacting online. They then went on to explain that some of the key elements of trust revolved around a consistency of message, visual appearance, and subtle clues that reassure the user that they were where they were supposed to be. It turns out that the small details really do matter. For the user, being able to see things like an organization's name and its logo quickly built a sense of consistency and permanence for them, while seeing other reminders like a Better Business logo or an SSL encryption icon, no matter how small and nondescript they may be, all work together to drive home the message of a secure and safe online ecosystem. At this point in our digital lives, almost all of us have used elements of e-commerce, banking, investing, or other types of services that rely on user identification and authentication. These logon screens are as common and understood as grains of sand on a beach. But like these same grains of sand, when you look closer, you begin to see some differences, both subtle and not so subtle. When you access these type of sites, I'd like you to consider some of the design elements that they contain and whether they inspire a level of confidence and trust, or maybe they have you wondering if you're really interacting with a legitimate site that isn't just some cleverly crafted scam put together by less than reputable individuals. Here on the screen, I've deconstructed a familiar feature on many secure websites, the login splash screen. And as you can see in my example, there are quite a few different permutations of this screen, and with each transition, you see more and more utility added to the screen. The point here isn't really about asking the question if each screen does its job by eliciting login credentials. Clearly they do. It's more about how engaging each one is. You'll also notice that as they evolve, so does their level of interaction and the capability that they offer, with the rightmost example offering the most user interaction. It is certainly better than the first two, but not what you would really consider good, as the underlying design theme never really changes from what many would consider a very vanilla and cookie-cutter approach. As we continue with our journey through this evolutionary design path, you'll notice this next splash screen has taken on some key design elements of an organization's digital signature. Now, granted, some of the elements have been pixelated out to protect their identity, but what you're sure to notice is that there has been a shift in color scheme, the incorporation of a company logo, as well as other key engagement points like help links and much stronger identity cues. Without question, this is a huge step up in terms of integration and presentation with regards to the end user. Lastly, we've taken this evolution to its final and I would argue natural iteration point where the login credentials have been seamlessly integrated directly into our fictitious company here, Acme Systems. Where we once went from an overly simplistic login splash screen, we're now presented with a more holistic design. We've gone from a login-centric application that offered little in terms of direction and purpose to a finely crafted page that makes logging in a central point of action, but in a much more ancillary way. From here, the user has no doubt as to where they are and with whom they're interacting. This page is a prime example of one that builds on the foundational blocks we talked about earlier regarding the end user's experience. The page presents all the key building blocks that ultimately lead to engendering a high sense of trust and loyalty on the user's behalf. You'll also see elements that engage the user directly on what they can and can't do and the type of information that is available to them. It has all the key design elements that we as users have come to expect. And it also provides the portal's administrator the ability to custom tailor not only what the user sees, but also what they have access to. This is a definite win-win situation. While strong design elements and aesthetics are important, there are also a number of behind-the-scenes features that need to be considered to make sure that the user experience isn't all show and no go. Depending on what your portal is designed to do and present to the end user will often dictate the type of security authentication you want to have behind it. Evaluating and truly understanding how the design and usability elements intersect will greatly aid in your ability to implement and administer to a secure web portal that satisfies both your users and your internal IT department needs. Well, as always, thanks for joining us on our YouTube channel, and remember to come back and visit us often as we begin to look at other topics of interest in computing, security, hacking, and industry trends. This is Jay over at Pistol Star. Be well.